So we're live. David Saltzman.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to go by Tyler or the nickname?
You could call me whatever you want.
Okay, the nickname that was given to you
Yeah.
when you were a lineman on the state championship runner-up team.
It was actually middle school. Kevin Swartzel gave it to me.
Middle school.
Yeah, it carried all the way through. There were teachers my senior year of high school that didn't know my real name.
Well, I'm happy to be here with you
Yeah.
in particular. I've known you really since your high school days, and I was always, I told you all along, always impressed by your work ethic,
I appreciate
working
that.
after school,
Yeah.
going to college. I don't think you had it that easy, but you always succumbed, and I love people like that.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, that's a funny thing, the working after school. Kroger, man. That's like when I
Kroger.
first really developed. I mean, that was like when I started to see you regularly. And
Yes.
you just always put a smile on my face, man. Like even the people that you would talk to, like it was just, everybody. And it was just always like a welcoming feeling. And I always appreciated that about you.
Thank you, Catfish.
Yeah, yeah.
Proud of you now. I can't believe you're doing this. This
Yeah,
is
thanks.
phenomenal.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. I'm happy to continue doing it. But one of the things you mentioned when we met earlier this week was that you grew up in New York. So how did you find your way to Athens? Like you started in New York. How did you end up here?
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in the apartment buildings, which was very interesting, with what I call an interesting family. And then after high school, well, I did get calls to try to play college football.
Oh.
But I did not like football. I played for 3 years. Those days, you really couldn't quit. Your parents would kill you, basically. And then I ended up here because I had a friend that went to school here
Nice.
from New Jersey
Wow.
that I met during the summers when I worked at a summer camp. And that's going to come back in this story at one point.
Yeah.
And that's how I got here.
Nice.
And I've learned a lot, but I've been here a half a century, brother,
Yeah.
and a couple of years more than that.
Yeah.
Very interesting area. Very blessed to end up here and know the people I know and the connections I've made, and et cetera.
Yeah. Did you come straight into like Athens Township, or did you ever live like anywhere outskirts?
But I lived in the dorms.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cool.
So I lived in the dorms for 2 years, and then, lived out, off campus. And then I'm not sure what happened after that. Just lived and worked,
Yeah, man.
et cetera.
Beautiful. And still here. Why haven't you left? Have you considered leaving before?
I think at times, but this is really an easy place to live. I think that people really, you could create your own difficulties, and maybe the events of life could be difficult that people have to overcome. But this is a very interesting community with a really rich history.
Yeah. What's interesting to it about you? Just like the university continuing to always pull new people in? Like, is it the impact of the university to town? Like, what when you say Athens is
Well, I
interesting?
graduated with a master's degree
Okay.
in counseling.
Wow.
So I was a psychotherapist. I think I worked first, and then I was a psychotherapist for about 5 years. And then I got into another sales business. But I don't really call myself part of the university, although I'm a graduate. A lot of my friends, well, they probably did, but I never hear anybody talking about being a graduate of OU and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not that it's not a good school. I'm just saying, yes, it brought me here, and I'm grateful to whatever happened since then, including the marijuana and CBD industry.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that I'm fascinated with, which I got to know more the last 3 or 4 years, maybe longer, is the moonshining history. Because I box over in Gloucester since 1985.
Sam Shin, yeah.
Sam's,
That's awesome.
Thank you. Most unbelievable person, right? Great place. Talk about different cultures in that gym. That's the oldest gym in the United States, by the way. But that whole neck of the woods, if you go towards New Straitsville, well,
Like up 13, you're saying?
up 13, and I think the forerunners of whatever people talk about, the cultivators, most likely were the moonshiners for some of the same reasons. You needed money to support your family, or extra money if you knew you weren't going to get an inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what people were thinking in the 70s or 80s about all that with marijuana. I have no idea.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, it kind of makes sense, the same, like, subset culture. It's like, the prohibition of a substance, right? And it's like, so I mean, it kind of lines up, like it checks out. But I mean, yeah, I've been hearing a lot about the 2018 hemp bill, like how that kind of opened up the door for some of the products and companies like these. But yeah, I mean, if you want to like talk about Bickett and Boone.
Well, when we talk about the hemp bill, and
2018 hemp bill.
2018, and we talk about Bickett and Boone, I want to say that I'm a representative for Bickett and Boone.
Mm-hmm.
I work very closely with Robbie Bickett, the CEO and founder of Bickett and Boone.
Yeah.
And we probably talk four or 5 times a week. I've been up to Kentucky several times. And my main concern with all, we talk about these products and everything, is the state of Kentucky.
Yeah.
Because in the state of Kentucky, I know that Bickett and their family and Boone, and I'll talk about their growing, which I know of and observed, is well known because of their histories.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm sitting here with 3 books, and there's going to be a documentary coming out. And I try to stress, that's not me. That's the people I really feel close to. And the person I really know, is Robbie Bickett.
Mm-hmm. And who has the podcast on Planted with Sarah Payne.
He was invited to that was a wonderful podcast.
Yeah.
And I want to say that very briefly, he was invited to that podcast by Vanessa and Jorma Kaukonen, who were part of that podcast sponsorship. I have no idea. I don't want to say something I don't know. Yeah. But that's who invited him, and we do produce products for them. And they are wonderful people, great people. So
yeah. And so the products, the topical, there's a tincture. Is the other one a gummy?
Well, I'm sitting here with 3 of our products right now, and that's a tincture. This, for example, is our 1,200 milligrams CBD Bickett and Boone Omerta, and that's a story in itself.
Can't wait to hear it.
And this is the Cornbread Mafia, which is the original Cornbread Mafia.
Huh.
There is someone that truthfully has stolen our name,
Mm-hmm.
and they use another term. I'm going to mention that here because they shouldn't use it. This is the Cornbread Blackberry 1,200 milligram gummy.
Yeah, cool.
And this is our 1,000 milligram. We have a 12,000 milligram too muscle cream.
Yeah, and that's the one you talked about Tuesday, and you said like you use that one regularly.
Well, I can't really do without that.
Yeah,
that muscle cream, which we do. I sell stuff from my home as well. From friends that have known me a long time, or once they knew I was involved in this business and the benefits of it. And Rob, we have
I'm so sorry.
We have an address you can call. You can reach Robbie by email, just bickettandboone.com. But with this muscle cream, well, I have a broken thumb. I got that in boxing. I have 2 knee surgeries on my right. That's arthroscopic. I'm not talking about all my illnesses here.
Yeah.
I had a full hip replacement, and now the doctor's telling me my right side is bone on bone. Now, this muscle cream is not gonna wake up one day and they go, "Oh, you don't need surgery.
Yeah.
Everything is completely healed. You're just a perfect human being now." Mm-hmm. No, I'm not ready for surgery, and my body aches. But when I put this muscle cream on, it really relieves the pain. I don't
improves quality of life. Like that's
improves
what we're
my
after.
quality of life.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And sometimes I'm real proud. There's this one. My godson's mother-in-law is probably 80. And, she could barely move. She probably has rheumatoid arthritis. I don't really know. I've only met her years back. But they order a lot of our muscle cream. So when she's out of our muscle cream, she tells her daughter, "Please go to Davis and pick up this muscle cream. I really need it for pain."
Yeah. The story hits very close to home. Like my mother was prescribed opiates and has used them for a long time. And she significantly reduced the amount of opiates that she takes on a regular basis by supplementing with cannabis and CBD. She uses the tinctures and the topicals. She's not a big fan of, igniting, like she's not like a joint or like even a vapor, anything that kind of gives her head rush and stuff. But the topicals, the edibles, the muscle creams, like and so I just couldn't be a larger proponent. Like, I have seen, my mom take less prescription painkillers because of, these products. So I'm a fucking huge proponent. Yeah. Improve the quality of her life.
Improve the quality of her life.
Yeah. That's
Now,
awesome.
there's a key. Again, ask me any questions.
Yeah.
And I could talk about myself when you decide to ask me some questions. But the one thing about, I want to talk about how I got in touch with, how I connected with these guys.
Bickett And Boone,
in a way. The whole story might come out later, but I worked in Kentucky once a month during when I had that textbook business, which was great. So starting in, I think, the 80s, at some point, I was working in Kentucky once a month. And I ended up working there till 2:17. And one day I was in a professor's office, and he had, I think it was maybe the Lexington News, I don't know, the Louisville Times, I don't know which one. And he started talking about these people. He's reading this article, maybe it was 89, 90. And it stuck in my head, not much, a little bit. And then years later, I've been with Robbie Bickett and Bickett and Boone for about, 5, 6 years. And I got recommended to them by someone who knew the brothers. He was very close to Robbie's brothers. They met in the federal penitentiary. And somehow I called Robbie, introduced myself, and got involved with Bickett and Boone.
Use some water, I guess.
Yeah. Thanks. Prior to that, I had no interest to get involved with CBD.
Prior to, this is in 2017, you're saying?
Prior to meeting them.
Oh, back in 80s, 90s, okay. Yeah.
No, I didn't meet them then. I'm talking about when I got involved with Bickett and Boone CBD about 6 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
5, 6 years ago. I had no intention of getting, I heard about CBD. People were talking about it left and right. I knew some people that left the state to buy farms somewhere, but just really wasn't my thing until I found out more about them and figured these are pretty interesting folks with a tremendous farming history.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it brings me today. I have complete confidence in the plant, and I've been there several times.
Yeah, I saw pictures on your Instagram, like out in the farm, and
that was probably the first year I was there. I think I was with Melanie in a big hemp field, which looks exactly like marijuana, and the plants were huge, which is not always the answer now, as we all learn.
Well, when you're saying like hemp versus marijuana, you're just talking about the potency of THC, right? A hemp plant's potency of THC is beneath the 0.3% or whatever, and then a traditional is that the distinction when you're saying a hemp and a marijuana? Like a marijuana is like what you believe a traditional cannabis, like indica or sativa plant, like that's what you mean?
I don't know if that's what I'm meaning now, and I'm sure
I don't even know if
I will present something here, but I'm going to go back. Yeah. Sometimes when I'm around people that talk about marijuana a lot and stuff, it's almost like I'm in a science class.
Mm-hmm.
If people go on, talk to me. Well, I didn't pass science in my high school in New York City where we had 1,200 graduating students. I do rely and listen and respect Robbie Bickett tremendously of his knowledge of farming. The hemp plant is the sister, cousin, whatever you want to call it, of the marijuana plant. What the medical profession once said is the difference is the cannabis plant has more THC, and the hemp plant, which we have, is only supposed to have 0.3 THC, which is a
Non-intoxicating substance. Yeah.
non-intoxicating substance within that plant, and they're separate plants, but they're cousins. And many people, they don't want to get intoxicated. Now, many people do. That's up to them.
Yeah.
But there are people that don't want to have that effect of altering their consciousness even a little bit. I'm just talking about some people.
Yeah.
But to say that this plant is not similar in the capabilities of relieving pain, increasing potential for better sleep, anxiety, well, that's not true. CBD does that. And that, to me, you could say, and no medical people are definitely saying, well, that's positive. That's a definite fact. But in the Bickett family, also Robbie Bickett's wife is a nurse. And I think she's a certified marijuana nurse, something like that. She got a certificate. His daughter's also a nurse, and his son's an environmental scientist or works with the environment. They're young. They're about the same age as my boys. And that's what we talk a lot about, our kids. So wherever the paths of life take us, we're just so happy that our kids are with us and maybe just a great people, right? Yeah. But so back to this plant, I believe in the CBD plant. I've had so many, I say, quote unquote, strange experiences. Once I had a little growth in me, and it was external, but it was kind of internal, right? So I said to my doctor, I said, is this? He goes, no. I said, so he goes, well, I'll call the pharmacy and we'll make a compound. I said, what if I just use my CBD product? And he said to me, that's what I would do. And that completely went away.
What do you mean a growth? Like like...
It was like something in me, kind of.
Yeah, okay.
But I used it topical, and it worked.
Yeah, shout out.
So that's a belief, and I believe in the Bickett and Boone product.
Yeah.
And the thing with Robbie, to give you an example, about a month ago, I've been meeting with some farmers that are very successful. They're business people around here, and I decided, because I've been talking about this for for a long time. They ask questions, very good listeners, these adults. Well, I said, I think I'm going to have a Zoom. Why don't we set up a Zoom call? And the Zoom was with Robbie. So I had these 3 people from here.
Farmers from the area.
You could say farmers, very successful businessmen. And it was a Zoom call with Robbie. Everyone came off that Zoom thinking, this guy really is the real deal. You could feel that. If he hears this, he's going to go, David, enough about me. He's not going to want to hear this.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm glad I work with an expert.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't all have to be experts. We have to have a passion for what we do, and a love for what we do, and a belief for what we do, and confidence of what we do.
Yeah. Just that authenticity is what drew you in? Like, immediately kind of like feeling like this Robbie Bickett guy, like he's the real deal? Like, because you're saying like you're just like listening to some dude read the newspaper and then, like fast forward and you're like...
The newspaper was on the guy's desk.
Yeah.
The teacher is a professor.
Yeah.
At Morehead State. So it's on his desk, and then he's looking and he goes, you ever hear of this? I mean, I don't know how the guy would think that I would.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, this is like cosmic, or what's going on 15 years later? It must have been 1990. I don't know what year it was.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy.
But that's it. I see the benefits. And the way the plants are grown, I find this fantastic. If you look at, Oregon has what they are on the 45th parallel for soil and stuff like that. But, really good soil. Central Kentucky, the USDA gave that one of the top ratings for soil. And then you have Maker's Mark, for example. You have, of course, we've been there. It's not far from the...
It's like the endless amounts of whiskey distilleries down there, yeah.
There is, and the soil is unbelievable. And these plants are grown. They use regenerative really it is regenerative organic farming, because these plants are grown on the Bickett farm. They have about 250 acres.
Yeah.
They did get their farm in 1798 with a
Couple years ago,
Revolutionary War grant.
That's crazy.
And they had to buy
All 200?
Well, there was more.
Yeah, okay.
So they had to buy some back. Some were taken. But when you go to you see those plants, I mean, they take care of them every single day.
Yeah,
every single day, Robbie's out there, and on that farm is they harvest and plant soybeans. They have cattle, and they have whatever small gardens they have. The interesting thing with that, I believe we grew 3 acres the last couple of years, 3 each year. When I first started going to Kentucky, you get off this road and you're on the way to Marion County or Springfield, whatever. All you see is hemp plants. Well, that's not like that anymore. People didn't make enough money.
Oh.
Maybe they lost money. No one really, I would be around people, maybe from around here, they'd brag, well, we're doing 70 acres of hemp plants. Well, I didn't know at the time, but I just felt that's a lot. I don't know why you need that much. That's what would go through my head.
Mm-hmm.
But what do I know, right?
Yeah,
so basically, it's really reduced, and everything that we plant, taken care of, is on all the organic work, all the watering, all the weeding is done, I would say, on almost a daily basis, because farming is big around that area, and the Bicketts are very good at what they do. I remember once, which really blew my mind. I don't really have it on here. I should, because it really was incredible to me. Yeah, so I went there with Melanie one year, the first year or second year. Went a couple of times, and they're clipping something on the plant. I guess it's called the Monterey Organic Pest Removal. I could be wrong about that. I thought it came from the University of Kentucky, but it just helped with getting rid of insects that would disturb this plant life.
Yeah. That is crazy. Well, I was just out at the Cannabis Museum, and they were talking about organic, ways of dealing with mites, and how, it's just, it's not if you're going to deal with the problem, it's when you're going to deal with the problem. Yeah. So it kind of makes sense that you're, very intensively taking care of them. Yeah. That's really cool. Bickett and Boone CBD. Another thing that intrigued me, pulled me into having you on the pod, was just hearing about your MBA agent career. Kind of a hard pivot.
Yeah.
If you had more on the Bickett and Boone thing, we could weave it back in. Yeah, but that would be cool to hear about. Yeah, how'd you even get involved in that? One day?
Which one?
Which one? What?
They get involved with? You mean with the NBA certification?
Yeah. Where was did you just one day think I could do this, and then you take a class? How, you know what I mean? Is there a license you get?
There's licenses. That was crazy. But. Not bragging on myself, but
no.
I don't know how I get lucky with connecting in situations that I do. Mm-hmm. I don't. I mean, sometimes I tell you know Zakiah and Micah pretty well. I don't know. So with the NBA thing, let me remember how it started. I had a place near Meigs County. I built a house out there. Nice. It was on off of Rainbow Lake Road. I guess Gilkey Ridge Road.
Out on Shade, or by Shade, yeah.
And I had a house out there. And I remember sitting, what year was that? I think it was 1998, because Z was born in 97. And I'm sitting there, and a friend of mine, an old high school friend of mine, was telling me how his son was playing minor league baseball. I don't know how, my mind just wandered, and Melanie was always supportive of everything I did, always is. And somehow I thought, how could I get in the sports business? How could I get in the sports business? I think I was looking at my freaking baseball cards or something, right? And you got to understand, at that time, one's firstborn, Micah's not born yet. I didn't really, I did not have a good athletic career due to my dad kind of pressuring me back then. You know, I was a baby boomer. They're all coming back from really killing people in the war. You had to be tough. I never thought my kids were going to play ball. Now, we laugh, you know, they ended up right. So I thought, man, this is great. I want my kids to learn farming. But anyway, back to the sports business. So all of a sudden, I think I could do something like this. So my brother's friend was very good friend of, I don't need to mention, former NBA player's dad.
Cool.
And I called him, and the guy spoke to me for an hour. I mean, that's crazy, out of the blue. But the one thing he said was, and this guy's probably 70 now, and his son played in the NBA, but he played in Europe.
Okay.
And, you know, there were agents then, and what he said to me was, don't quit your day job.
Yeah.
This is going to be brutal.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about anything I've done in life or work, this was the most BS, people backstabbing, stealing.
Fuck smoke and mirrors the whole way.
That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I got lucky. The first call I made, this is nuts. I used to go to my other business, which was a textbook buying business. That got me to Kentucky. But I went to Central State, Ohio, Central State University, predominantly black school. And I got to know the women's basketball coach. And I said, what would be in it for me if I can get your whole team Nike footwear and Nike bags and uniforms? Not uniforms.
Cover-ups, like warm-ups?
Yeah, not warm-ups, just a shirt, a jacket.
Yeah, okay.
I wasn't going to the uniform thing. Somehow, I call Nike. This is nuts. This was nuts. And I spoke to a guy, and I said, would you be interested in helping a school that really doesn't have much money for extra things? He signed a deal with me.
Nice.
And that was the first $500 I made.
Okay.
And then, I don't know how else. Being a New York City kid, you do know a lot of people growing up that maybe you went. I mean, the people that played basketball where I was in New York, I mean, there was so many guys that made, at that time the ABA merged with, so many guys. And then one thing led to another. I started knowing college coaches, assistant coaches. And I just worked my tail off, and I'm sure I represented 70 players all in all throughout the years. I'm not saying I made the agent money, but it was a good second income as Melanie was home taking care of, and she loved it, taking care of the boys as they were growing up.
Yeah. How do you think, I mean, there's an obvious answer here, but like, how do you think you growing up in New York versus like Zakiah and Micah growing up here, like, I mean, what are kids from this area not getting exposed to, you know, like comparative there? Is it just like the amount of people and ideas? Like what would you say are the biggest differences to growing up in a small town?
What I tell my boys and their friends, I was speaking to Finn Cola a while ago.
I like
you know,
Finn. Yeah, he's down in Kentucky too.
Down in Kentucky. And I was just saying, and my godchildren from a woman who's like a sister to me, they're like 50, 40, 37. I always around, when I was in college, I was around a lot of single mothers. But because my brother is 12 and a half years younger, Catfish, I learned how to do diapers.
Yeah.
So I learned how to change diapers.
Whoa, yeah.
So I'm here, if you're dating someone, or could you change the kid's diapers? Yeah, I know how to do that. I learned when I was 13. But I feel my kids certainly, you're talking about that, have a much better life. I think it's easier and more, they're tough kids and you're a tough guy, but this is better. I'm not saying it's better like if you live in, you know, whatever it is, but for me it showed it. I mean, I lived in, my parents were not poor. My dad was a pharmacist, but he was caught up. I have a sister, 3 years younger, and then there's a 12-year-old younger brother, 12, great kid. He's a superintendent around Everett, Washington.
Nice.
He didn't grow up like me. My dad was much different with the youngest. And my dad grew up
Like
with...
softened up a little bit?
Oh,
you mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
And my dad grew up with all brothers.
Mm.
So he...
Fucking testosterone all
around. With
around.
my sister, she was a princess.
Mm-hmm.
Me, not that much.
Yeah.
But you grow up in New York and you see different things of how people, one, made money illegally,
Mm.
you know, and how people get in trouble. Yes, there's a great bond with everything. My teammates were basically half were from Brownsville, Bedford-Stuyvesant, at that time the worst section in New York, because busing and integration came through. If the school was bad, you can go to any school you wanted in New York. We couldn't, I don't think. But if you were from bad areas, you could leave the two high school areas and go to another high school.
Like an open enrollment type thing.
Kind of.
Yeah, okay.
But you have to understand, I mean, Mike has 2 pit bulls. I know he locks the door, but he doesn't have 4 locks like I did.
Yeah,
we had 4 locks on the door. I mean, I could tell you some crazy stories.
Will you? I mean, fuck, I don't know anywhere to be. You don't have to.
Not really. That's just growing up in Brooklyn. And I only remember this when you mention it or when I'm subbing at the high school. When there are some real problems, you know, but...
In the area, you mean? Just like the kids do?
Well, our area does, obviously. Athens County, it's Appalachia. But not the behavior problems that we experienced.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it was hard to go. You didn't really want to go. And I was kind of tough playing ball, but you didn't really want to go into the bathrooms because you don't know if the gangs were there. There was 1,200 in my graduating class.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and there wasn't even that many kids in my entire high school, right? Like our class was like
Your
one
class
of the
was
biggest.
like 220.
And it was a big one.
Yeah, it was a big one.
Yeah. That is just, yeah. Like, I can see how that, like, makes sense.
So, but my main thing is, you know, I'm glad I'm in this business now.
Yeah.
And I'll be in this till I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, because of the passion involved.
That's awesome. So how can somebody find those products? Just BickettandBoone.com? Is that the website?
You could order online at BickettandBoone.com, BICKETT and Boone, BOONE.com.
Yeah, put a link in the description. Cool.
And you could call me directly.
Yeah.
I don't mind giving my phone number out.
Perfect.
740-707-6118.
Get him, David Saltzman.
Now, you started me in the conversation moving from different points.
Yeah.
I try to stay focused.
Oh, no, dude, that's not me.
I'm
Man.
like,
I just fucking bounce.
I
Whatever,
know,
man.
I know you.
What did I cut you off somewhere?
No.
Did you want to keep going?
No.
Yeah.
No. Just the confidence I have in this product.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, fuck you, use it.
And
You know, that's
people-
kind of that means more to me
the
than...
people I'm with, the people. I mean, I call all over the globe. I mean, our goal, though, I must say, with Bickett and Boone, since I'm representing them in this conversation,
Yeah.
Robbie Bickett's the owner and CEO, so I'm a representative, let's say, or a very involved person, is what happened, and you were asking questions. Well, we did apply for the medical marijuana license.
Here in Ohio or Kentucky?
No, Kentucky. Everything I think is in Kentucky because I see the marketing advantage. You know, it is true. Like, we've been behind, in my opinion, with advertising and marketing because it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And right now, we're not willing to shell that out as we prepare for the future. That's my professional opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have the funds right now here's $25,000 to be on this healthline.com. And then on Facebook, you could mention the company that pays you and do great advertising for them. Okay, that's it. But we did go for the medical marijuana license, and we were turned down. I think we're appealing. Well,
turned down. Like,
did
they give a reason?
I don't remember. I didn't ask Robbie the reasons. What I know about it was a lottery. So it went in the balls.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, Catfish. I'm subbing that day, which I sub every day at Athens High School or Middle for the last 4 or 5 years, folks. Anyway, it was lunch break for me or planning period. So I'm watching the lottery. And it was $3,000 non-refundable.
That's the only reason it's a fucking lottery. God damn, what?
So
they're making you pay $3,000
Yeah.
for a fucking chance to maybe get a
for a
fucking
chance for maybe
Where's that money going?
non-refundable.
Where's to who?
I would assume the state of Kentucky, but the Commonwealth, let me say, of Kentucky. But I'm sitting there, and the balls are rolling. And if you know me, life's had its challenges, but I don't get depressed really. So once we didn't get it, when it was all over, my body for 2 days, like, oh, this is weird, man. I don't even know if I'm having thoughts. It's just like, I am like, whew. I thought we'd get it. I thought we had all the qualifications. That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't publicly feel my thought. I was upset.
Yeah.
But what I did know is like the last 3 days of applying, because I know people in Ohio, they'll talk about their things here, 4,900 applicants. The last 3 days.
It's like, where's that
Mostly from out of state. So I think I could be wrong again. I think maybe Kentucky has 16 medical marijuana license they gave out, maybe less.
And 4,000 fucking applicants, 4,900 people that paid $3,000. I mean, what's that fucking math?
Who knows? But you're an accountant. But I'm talking about those folks. Most were from out of town, out of the state.
Yeah.
They must have had the perfect moniker, the perfect way to fill all the answers and questions out, because they've done it all over the country. Anyway.
Yeah, that was
disturbing. But I think we're all a little down. I don't think giving up is ever part of the people I work with.
Do you know how often they do the lives? Is it just like once a year, or like, I don't know?
Probably one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But usually, and I'm sure with the guys we'll hire, we'll tell you, usually after the medical, 3 years later come the recreational.
Fucking look at Ohio, right?
So,
Doesn't Ohio follow very close to that? Like 2020, 2024?
Yep. And my thoughts is, we're going to make money. And that's how Robbie and myself talk. Dave, we're going to keep going. By the way, in dealing with the guys in Kentucky, and I want to mention a couple of things here. When I speak to Robbie, it took at least 3 years to understand what the hell he was talking about to his accent. It's so freaking Kentucky Southern. Now, in response to that, he would go, Dave, I don't need to have a drink or anything. I could just listen to you. It puts me to sleep. You talk so much. Goodbye, Dave. That's the New York in me that never left after a half a century. So with me here today, I want to say a couple of things. And I'll bring this up again next time.
Perfect.
There is an unbelievable, I call it a sociological study. Robbie's brother, Jimmy Bickett, he does something called Hemp Fest. I hope it's not Hempstock, I'm forgetting. Hemp Fest in Kentucky. It's an all-day music venue. It's in September. To me, I love going there.
Yeah.
Completely love going there. And then there's 3 books out by Joe Keith Bickett. He's a friend of mine. I don't really speak to him that much, but he's a friend. I consider him a friend. Robbie's brother. And he has 3 great books. He's coming out with a 4th. And it's the true story of the original fellas, the original Cornbread Mafia. And the reason I want to say that, and I'm someone who was brought up learning deep respect from what my dad and my uncle were involved with in life. And always also, I learned as a young kid, never rat anybody out. I mean, we didn't really know what my dad was doing, what my uncle was doing. We were nosy. You live in an apartment building, you're picking up the phone from the other room, then you get your butt yelled at. I never got hit, if you pick it up. But the thing about this group, and I give Robbie so much credit and all these fellas, all of the fellas, there was a group from central Kentucky, and they grew a lot of marijuana. And in that thing you'll see, and I like hanging out with them, when they got busted, it was 200 tons of marijuana. And they all did a lot of prison sentences. Now, I know people here, that have done some. But when I think about Robbie Bickett, he didn't do, he's a master's level. He works in the judicial system, but he was the youngest brother. They're older than him. Like my brother is younger than me. Mm. So one of his brothers, Joe Keith, who wrote the book, was sentenced to 25 years, mandatory, because of marijuana. Jimmy did, I think, 20-something. And there's other guys there. Like when I run into Bobby Shoemaker, he did 23 freaking years. And Fred Hogg, these guys, 18, 19. And Johnny Boone, the true legend of all of this. Robbie was very close to Johnny and his family. And I'll bring up one story. So he did 20-something years, and he was called the Godfather of Grass. Did I ever meet or talk to Johnny Boone? Well, that's a funny story. I don't know if I could say yes or no, not because it's something. Well, what happened one day? And when you mention the sports business, you got to understand, I represented LeBron James's high school teammates on that Akron St. Vincent St. Mary when they went to the pros. So I represented Drew Joyce, who's now the head coach of Duquesne. I had him for 2 years. I've always been around. Like, one of the fellas stayed at my house for a year, once a week, because he was working for the OU Bobcats, and his wife had moved to Columbus, so they stayed at my house. It was always, so what? You're meeting these people, they're all good people. Mm-hmm. And I'm rambling, but am I rambling here?
We did switch back from Cornbread Mafia back to sports.
I'm back to Cornbread, but I'm Boone Dope both at the same time. Yeah. And when I was a kid, my dad told me, I was at a Knick game, I was 10 or 11, he said, "What are you cheering for these guys for? You don't know them." That's a rough thing to say to a kid. He probably had a gambling thing going on. Well, one day I'm at a hotel room, and Robbie pulls up. I'm in Lebanon, not far from Raywick. And in the car is Johnny. So we drove like 45 minutes, an hour and a half. And I felt, wow, this is amazing. Because this guy, we were just laughing, and I think there was some alcohol involved. But we were just laughing, and I thought, why is this important to me? Because he was a legend in the marijuana business, and he served his time. And the one thing with these guys, again, it's not me. I was in the marijuana business, that's true. But this was not me, but none of them ever ratted anybody out. And I felt that was a huge thing.
Yeah. It's like, game respect, game, for sure.
I mean, that's amazing. You're facing all those years, you never say anything.
Well, dude, it's like, I mean, it's fucking deeper than that is the thing. You know what I mean? It's like, to them, dude, it's their fucking life. It's their life. It's not a game. It's not a ploy. It's not a fucking smoke and mirror. I mean, and I think it's a testament to that. It's yeah. That's really awesome. Yeah. Johnny Boone, Robbie Bickett.
Well, buy these books, folks.
Yeah. So the names: Cornbread Mafia, The Quest for Freedom, Cornbread Mafia, A Memoir of Sorts. That's right. And Cornbread Mafia, The Outlaws of Central Kentucky. I bet you I could find links to these and get those in there too. All by Joe Keith Bickett. So 3 Cornbread Mafia books. Joe Keith Bickett. Awesome.
So I want to give him a shout out.
Yeah.
But I really want to give the big shout out to Robbie Bickett and what he's meant to me in this business. I hope I've talked about it enough. BickettandBoone.com, because the tinctures work. Yeah. And the thing is, it used to be, people would say, and I don't blame them at all, like young people in their 20s, 30s, well, I want to get high. Yeah. And I don't blame you. Yeah. You want to relax. You want to get high. You're not going to get like this without products. Mm-hmm. But recently, especially, when people that I know or close to me go, yeah, I really want, could you get me some tinctures because it helps with my anxiety or sleep, that makes me happy. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Without like psychoactively impacting them. Yeah, I mean
the fact that they're open to it now.
Yeah. It's great. It's a great thing, man. I'm glad that you came on to talk about the story. I'm glad you shared it. That's really awesome.
I think I want to close on one thing without talking about myself, because it hasn't come up with you, is sometimes Okay, I'll give it an example. I was with some people, maybe it was at the museum, and very nice people.
Cannabis museum you're talking about.
Yeah, and someone said to me, and I was telling them about this work I did in the 80s. It was very unique. I think I was half stupid and half just, I don't know what, I just did this certain thing with marijuana. I grew marijuana, but I never sold marijuana. My friends would come and pick it up. But I want to say a couple of things here. And they said to me, well, I never knew you were involved at all. And my comment was, I don't think you were supposed to. Why? Why would I want anyone to know? And I think with the Bickett's too, I want to say with our product, Bickett and Boone, for me, it's grown outdoors. And we plant our seeds. And it's grown outdoors in the best area to grow this plant, this product. And I know a lot about indoor farming from the 80s. I'm going to say this. And I don't ever put it down. Some of us wanted the money, some of us were doing what they were doing, and you could produce those female clones, which went back outside.
Mm-hmm.
But I never stopped. I don't think anybody that I know, at least that I know, ever stopped learning. Because sometimes I've heard that. I've set up shop. Well, the Bickett and Boone, I think I heard them, but wasn't that like 50 years ago? I don't know. I don't know what they do. They were in jail, but I'm sure people still learn from whoever we learn from. Maybe at least a little bit from me. And when I talk about our plant, I think the outside plant is better.
Cultivating outside.
Yeah. And it was funny because in November, I was at the post office here. Lo and behold, in one stop, I ran into 3 growers from the 80s and 70s here in Athens, 70s and 80s. And I'm just smiling. And all of them grew their plants outside. I guess they had a contest or something. Mm-hmm. And there's something about outside plants.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Something about nature. I don't know. I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
So I know you could control your environment with indoors, and I respect it. Something about nature gets me with the outside stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here talking.
Yeah. No, well, I was just going to kind of agree with you. One of the cannabis companies that came on, they explained, the way that they explain what you're talking about is like, you're trying to replicate nature inside, or you could just go with you're trying to like replicate the sun. You're never going to do that. Why don't you just take it out to the sun, So I think they were just sharing that same sentiment. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm growing some recreational cannabis plants, and I'm doing all outside as well. I honestly, inside just seems like a hassle. It seems also way more expensive, like dehumidifiers and carbon monitors and humidifiers and 10-gallon fabric pot. Here's some nice Fox Farms dirt. Here's some bat shit and worm casting.
And you have fun. Well, if you're growing up like a football field worth it, it's not.
I'm sure that could be laborious.
Easy,
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, David Saltzman. This is beautiful.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I know we rambled a little bit, but
that's the point.
If someone can get the gist of what the expression here is, if it helps one person, if some people want to buy our products, that helps. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Read the books. Check out Cornbread Mafia.
And
beautiful. All right, David Saltzman. This is awesome.